more recently in the generative AI space, I've been helping companies to explore applications for that novel technology, not only the customer-facing side, but really also with the individuals and the employees working in that organization, and how to bring about change in respect to AI, because it's one of those spaces where it comes with a huge amount of the only way to say it is comes with a huge amount of baggage, right? It's not just a technology, right? It means upending a lot of like working relationships if you don't get it right as well.
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Helping People Perform. And got another amazing guest for you this week, someone that I've had the great pleasure of collaborating with recently, and I'm sure we're going to come over onto that topic at some point today. But joining us in the studio today, we've got founder of Evloutio Consulting and self-proclaimed GPT and Generative AI Geek. Welcome to the show today, Justin Tan.
Thank you, Paul. And I love that you mentioned self-proclaimed generative AI and ChatGPT geek.
And I'm sure we're going to come on to those great topics as we go through. And I know you do some amazing stuff, but you've also got an amazing backstory as well. So tell us about what's got you to where you are today. You know, what's your career been like, and what's got you through this journey to where you are at this moment in time?
Absolutely, Paul. I think back on my career journey, and it's basically a bit of a twisty maze. I'm not one of those people that at 16 years old has planned out their entire life. But I think it's more fun this way, if you will. I started out after graduating from LSE. I started out in investment banking. At that point in time, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I wanted into banking, so I kind of started there. Quickly decided it really wasn't for me though, and I figured I like problem solving, so why not go be a consultant? And this was despite the advice of my dad that consultants, I don't trust them. Didn't take his advice, and obviously became a consultant, and actually stayed a consultant for like maybe nearly 8 years. Did my MBA in the meantime. Decided though at some point that I needed to kind of go experience the real world. And I ended up joining one of my clients, Bupa, for about 2 years. Spent some good time there, met some really good friends, but decided I wanted a bit of change after that. And I moved into yet again another one of my clients, Merck. So Merck, huge organization, was a very big change for me, actually. Learned a lot, but I decided that just the size of the organization really wasn't my thing. So about 3 years ago, I decided to take that big step out and found my own business, Evloutio Consulting. And since then, I've been helping companies with their strategy and strategy implementation. And in the last year and a half or so, in AI and generative AI, it's not an area that I'm entirely new to. I actually advise companies while at a bigger consulting firm on AI and digital transformation, and I've only now returned to that topic. It's a big passion of mine. I think one area that I've been super keen on as well in the last year and a half is on training. I've always been big into education. I think you are as well, Paul. I know you've got a training series out there. I remember actually giving tuition and coaching some of my juniors at school. It gave me great pleasure to do so. So about a year and a half ago, I decided to start training. Most of my clients are junior consultants from where I came from, but also I coach some of my clients in the corporate space as well on a variety of topics like problem solving, and more recently, of course, with the big craze out there, generative AI. So that's a little bit about me, or maybe more than a little bit than you bargained for.
No, that's great, and there's some amazing stories in there, and I've been a bit like you in terms of I've been into that world of consulting. I was in a smaller scale piece where I got most of my experience in the early days. But my experience was very much you accelerated your exposure to business by going in and seeing things at a whole different level and being able to step back and seeing lots of different businesses as you go. Um, was that your experience, and what were some of the standout lessons that you've learned from that time in the big consulting firm?
Yeah, so no, my experience was essentially that. I mean, one of the things I did love and still do love about consulting so much is that you get to see so much happening across various businesses. And the great thing is you get to choose the businesses that you want to work with as well, so you can learn from them. I think one of the observations that I've had is that businesses are just a lot more complicated on the inside than you take them to be, because it's very easy. When I first started out as a junior consultant or advisor, you stand outside and you make some suggestions and you think, oh gosh, it must be so easy to like implement all of this, right? Actually, when I started to move into a corporate organization, and then that put a lot of things in perspective, which is that it just takes work to get things done in an organization, which is why more of the work I do these days is on strategic implementation, so actually getting things done. Because I think where organizations struggle a lot is turning sort of that nice deck built by McKinsey or BCG, and then turning that into what actually happens in the organization. Um, I think you can have the best plan in the world, but if you don't get it done, it's not that useful. So that's one of my big learnings.
Yeah, no, I've been there and and seen that, and the impressive decks and suggestions that you come out of these engagements with, and if it isn't properly followed through and supported and engaged with in the organisation, all it's going to be is a lovely expensive paperweight, really, isn't it? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the theme of the podcast, helping people perform, right? It's also about helping organizations perform, getting from that plan into things that happen on the ground.
No, some brilliant stuff there, and so maybe that takes us nicely into what it is you do today. So tell us about Evloutio. You've sort of hit on some of the main topics, but who are your types of clients? Do you work with small businesses, individuals, large organizations, and how do you help them perform?
Yeah, certainly, Paul. So it's quite a mixed bag, I must say. I work with everything from startups to larger corporations, and it's great that as a independent consultant, you and small business, you get to choose with who you want to work with. So for me, it's not so much the size of the business that matters, but I guess it's the direction of travel for the business and whether their values are aligned with yours. I mean, my affiliation for the longest time has been with the healthcare, life sciences, and medtech space. I spent a long time advising in that space, but these days I've kind of broadened my horizon. So, I spend time, for example, helping to lead up the operations team at a scale up, a healthcare startup scale up. And what I did in that role was basically to kind of act as the operations director, but also really to revamp the organization there, to like bring them into from a startup into a scale up stage, right? And then that's the implementation bit that I've talked about. And then for a larger organization, for example, in the medtech space, I've worked on like developing a strategy for the distribution business of that particular enterprise across various geographies. And then more recently in the generative AI space, I've been helping companies to explore applications for that novel technology, not only the customer facing side, but really also with the individuals and the employees working in that organization, and how to bring about change in respect to AI, because it's one of those spaces where it comes with a huge amount of the only way to say it is, it comes with a huge amount of baggage, right? It's not just a technology, right? It means upending a lot of like working relationships if you don't get it right as well.
Right. Oh, brilliant! And I know when we've worked together, we've collaborated, and I've seen you in action with some of your Chat GPT work. It just inspired me to start getting involved and to really start to just chip away at the edges. But what are some of your main observations in that world in terms of where it is now and where it could be and where it's heading in the future?
Yeah, no, this is a super pertinent question, Paul, because I've been doing trainings for various organizations on generative AI, and I'm very excited to actually in maybe the coming 2 months or so to release a a direct to consumer or public course. And so as I was doing that, I've started to interview people about what they feel about AI, about generative AI, and what they want to learn about it. And through those interviews, I've actually gotten to learn so much about it, right? Because I'm one of the you could say the early adopters, but general public, the perceptions are quite different. And some of the learnings that I have, for example, I think the key one there is that feelings, undoubtedly are mixed about AI in the general population, right? There is for most people a sense that AI can achieve a lot, but B, there's also trepidation in a number of areas, right? You have to get realistic about this. One is like basically, and most literally is AI going to take my job, right? That's a fear that a lot of people have. Secondly, right, there's also a fear of, am I going to do this in the right way, right? Because people don't want to get fired, right? So a lot of people have said, right, I would like to learn how to use this not only effectively, but responsibly as well. Because not sure if you heard a while back, like some Samsung employees actually got let go from the company because they had actually put proprietary material into ChatGPT, right? So various types of fears out there. There's also the sense, because the technology is new, that not everyone actually knows what to do with it. And I think this is the trick with generative AI. I think you've mentioned it as well. Um, is that the technology is so vast and so broad that you actually have to think creatively and get your hands dirty
Mm.
in order actually to understand what you can do with it, right? Treating it as an expanded version of Google is just not very helpful,
Right.
right? So that's I feel is the general impression in the market. And then sometimes a third observation that I have is that there's quite a dichotomy sometimes between the C level and the employee, the broader employee workforce, right? And sometimes that disconnect is quite vast. On the one hand, sometimes you have employees that are really interested in learning more, but they're looking to the C-suite for guidance. But the C-suite is distracted by other things, so they haven't bothered to actually really think through some of the implications of even just letting their employees use ChatGPT, for example.
Right.
Other times, it's the flip side, right, where the employees are actually quite uncertain and worried about generative AI, and then the C-suite is super enthusiastic about it because it's like, it's going to give us great cost savings, it's going to give us great productivity benefits, but they haven't kind of found a way to join those two together and to bring them into alignment. So there's a bit of a dichotomy in quite a few organizations I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I've from the little experience and research that I've done in this area, it is very much reflecting what you said there, which is people see the value. And I guess the feeling I've had from the conversations I've had is, oh, it's amazing. But it's probably for those people over there or in a different industry or different level of the business. And they're almost waiting and stepping back and going, I'm going to wait until I'm told that, I need to use it. Up until then, I'll just ride the wave in terms of what I'm doing right now. Thanks very much. And hold back, which I guess is the epitome of the the crest or the bell curve. You've got your early adopters, you've got your people who are just waiting to be told, and then you've got your latecomers as well. So
Exactly. And I think the trick with generative AI is that bell curve is going to come through a lot quicker than most people expect, right? If you think about it, like I think I read somewhere that the telephone took like 50 years to get mass adoption, or maybe more, I don't know. And the mobile phone maybe a number of years, right? But if you look at ChatGPT, it took a month to hit like 100 million users. So, where is technology going to go from there?
yeah. So what are some of the sort of top tips you've got for people who are wanting to get and test out some of the opportunities that are there, but are too afraid to ask or too afraid to start? What can people do?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I would say this is a big one for me. YouTube or Instagram or TikTok for that matter is your friend. And I can't claim to have like a secret recipe beyond actually a YouTube and Google. But the other secret recipe that I have is actually just mess around, right? Don't be afraid to go mess around and try things out. I get it's not everyone's cup of tea, but the only way to get good at something is actually just to practice and get better, right? Um, the thing about using generative AI is that it's also, it reacts to you as well, but you also react to it. It's part of a conversation that's ongoing between two parties, and I think a lot of people don't get that. They give up after, they'll put in a prompt into the system and it comes out with a result that they're not that happy with, and then they kind of give up from there. I've seen that happen quite a few times with people I'm trying to teach, and what I say is that, there's a learning curve to everything. Get over that hump, and you're going to be very comfortable with that. And then the third one is I would say just get together a group of people that are interested in it and have a shared journey together. I think this is not very serious. This is not very complex stuff. But if you're in a group of people who are excited about something, you are a lot more excited. You're a lot more likely to become excited as well.
Awesome. So give it a go, keep going, and try, and then get into a community of some sort, or connect with people and learn from them as well. Those are the three things that I'm hearing from that.
Yeah. So basically, not rocket science.
And one of my experiences in this area, and it came about when we were working together, was what it really helped me do was actually the value of going, here's a prompt, let's see what it comes back with, and going, no, that's not what I meant. And if you can use it in that sort of agile, sort of proof of concept kind of way to go, actually, I'm not asking the right questions. I didn't mean it in that sense. I probably meant it in a different way, or I want it in a different tone, or I'm looking at a slightly different angle on this. But it's not until you see the response that you realize, actually, I've asked the wrong question there. I thought I was asking a great question, but actually, on reflection, I can see how that could have been misinterpreted. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely that's part of the getting your hands dirty bit, right? I think the powerful thing about all this as well is that the technology is moving so quickly. So something that, you alluded to something not sort of maybe meeting your satisfaction today, but what I've seen in the market out there is that the technology is moving so quickly, right? Just a few months ago, we saw that ChatGPT would hallucinate, right? Create a lot of, fake answers, right? Instances of those have dropped like very dramatically just in under 6 months, right? So they're ironing out a lot of the kinks of technology, even in the matter of under a year, basically.
yeah. And going back to I'm going to put the link to the article that we worked on together.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I think great article, I think.
But that was all about making better decisions, essentially, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Data-driven decisions. So it feels to me, in terms of the work that you're doing at Evloutio, is about connecting people with how to make better decisions, and utilizing the technology. It's not just a case of let's utilize technology. It's actually for a purpose.
Yes.
Learning that for a purpose to help with decisions, and also to help put those strategies into action. So I can see how you're tying all of these elements together. It's really great stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's as you say, I think decision making has been a huge passion of mine. Ever since I read the book Thinking Fast, Slow, which I believe was from Malcolm Gladwell, and it started to get me thinking about how people actually make decisions. And when we were talking about it, right, when we wrote that article together, data plays a very important part in making decisions. But actually, if you don't have the right setup in order to make use of your data, it's not that helpful, right? I think we talked about a number of things. For example, like making sure you have a very clear hypothesis upfront, right, before you actually go start digging around and messing around with your data, right? Because it's going to, otherwise you get lost in that sea of data, right? And then the other thing is that human element as well, of like just making sure that you bring a broad number of perspectives, right? Because data itself sometimes can be misleading, right? And if you bring more people to the table, you get more perspectives. You're likely to uncover potentially biases or things unseen in the data that one person would have missed.
Oh, there's some amazing learnings to be had there, and it's a fascinating field in and of itself, isn't it? How people make decisions, and then what can we do to support them to make better decisions in that space? Wonderful. Um, um, in terms of your performance, then, so you obviously you've taken the lead in terms of going out and trying some things in the generative AI world. But how do you stay on top of the game? What is it that you do that keeps you performing at your best?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Sometimes I wish actually the performance would improve over time. What I would say though is that like I'm like everybody else actually, and there are periods of like highs and periods of lows. I think what helps is to kind of set goals, but not be too hard on yourself if you don't make them. So a framework I like to use is OKRs, and OKRs is objectives and key results. So I recommend that a lot of my clients use them, right? Because I think it's a great tool from getting from planning strategy into execution, right? So OKRs are a really simple tool where every period in time, it could be every 2 months, every 3 months, you set yourself an overarching objectives, and you make sure that behind that overarching objective, which would be, for example, um, we want to reach or we want to build a presence in this particular customer segment with our product, right? And then you set key results behind that objective, right? Typically no more than 3 to 5. So in the example that I gave you, one key result could be that, for example, we want to hit, let's say, we want to do a mailing list of like 1,000 people, let's say, in that particular segment. So very hard, concrete numbers that you kind of put behind that, and it keeps you grounded, right? Because sometimes if you set too lofty objective and you don't have a key result, then how do you know you've actually achieved that key result?
Mm.
And in that, when you apply or when I ask clients to think about applying OKRs, tell them to set it a little bit ambitious, right? So that they don't, you shouldn't make the goal too easy, right? You should think about if you achieve about 70% of your OKRs, you kind of do well because it's a stretch type of goal. I try to do the same for myself as well. So recently, to be honest, I haven't been doing that well on my OKRs. I think I've hit only like 50% of them. So maybe the goals are too stretched, or I'm not putting in enough efforts. But I think that comes back to the other side as well about performance management, which is that as an individual, just I've learned over the last few years that managing yourself is just as important as everything else, right? As managing your clients or managing your business, because you go through highs and go through lows. This summer, for example, has been a more difficult one for the consulting business, right? How do you manage that emotional ups and downs, right? Like how do you regulate yourself, right? I try to like spend time with people that keep me more calm, right? I make sure that I take time out to go to the park for a walk, for example, in the middle of the day. So small little things like that can help to regulate the nervous system if I'm feeling more stressed.
Right. Oh, some wise words there. And I think, it's always something that we can do for ourselves to manage that expectation. I know that people in our network as well, with the solopreneurs group that we're in, headed up by the great Faris Aranki, it's rarely
Indeed.
rarely an episode goes by without me mentioning him. So, but he brought us together and when we first connected. But having a network like that where you can, particularly if you're a solopreneur or if you're in a small business, even if you're a CEO and you don't feel as if you can go to your own business because you're seen as this person sort of at the very pinnacle of your organization, and having a network that you can feel safe and feel included and feel as if you can just share your current concerns or your ideas and share your successes as well. It really does help to, certainly for me, to regulate that. Yeah.
It does, yeah. I didn't realize the importance of having this peer community, if you will. Back when I was an employed individual, because it came naturally as part of the job, right? You had your colleagues, and for me, for the longest time, I was in a consulting firm actually, and I had loads of peers who were intelligent, smart, but also very very like-minded. So you're right in the sense that especially having when you go into the entrepreneurship, and you're a CEO or a leader in the organization, and that can actually be quite a lonely journey. And having sort of a peer network is very powerful. I would say though, as a leader, that having an element of coaching, or an entrepreneur, I would say, element of coaching and mentoring is so important as well. I think it's part of overcoming that loneliness journey as well. But and also having friendship, but then also having someone to bounce ideas off and to put things in perspectives, right? Because sometimes we can be too hard on ourselves, or maybe not hard enough on ourselves, and you just need someone who's maybe objective about everything to kind of give you a pat on the back or a few wise words from time to time.
Indeed, indeed. And so let's switch things up a little bit and say, if you had the opportunity to bring your skill set, whatever that might be, maybe you focus on decision making, maybe you focus on OKRs or trading or the generative AI space, and to help anyone, so any individual or group or organization, and if you could help them perform with the skill set that you've got, who would you want that to be?
So someone I would want to help in terms of a client.
Yeah, an individual or a team or an organization, someone you go, I'd really love to work with those people.
Oh, wow. Okay. Really good question. There's someone I really want to work with. I'm not sure he needs my help, but there you go. This is more someone I admire. If I flip that question around, is Barack Obama really?
Right?
As an individual, I would love to work with him only because I would learn probably so much from him in the process, right?
Yeah.
On soft skills and just the ability to be humble and really just be the word I use is have presence, just that perfect blend of humility and presence is so powerful. I realize I may not have fully answered your question there. I think it's not really a specific, like if I would think of a company, it's not really a specific one as well if I like to work with. Uh, I do like to work with organizations that are more growth oriented. Um, just because like efficiency and potentially cost cutting are all important things in their own right. But because of my personality, I like to be more growth oriented. So if the agenda is more growth oriented, I'm just a lot more attuned with that. I think for me, again, maybe the archetype of the organization that I like to work with is one where the values are aligned with mine, right? So, for example, I think it's very important that an organization takes care of its employees, for example. If an organization starts to see their employee just as assets, right? I can't bring myself to work with the organization. I have done so in the past, right, as part of a larger consulting firm, but it hasn't made me feel nice. But when I work today with organizations where employees are seen as part of the family, I feel like I'm actually contributing to that, right? I think as advisors in the world, we have almost a responsibility to shape things in a better way. And for me, that better way actually is about a more responsible form of business and commerce, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful stuff. And I think that you've hit something on the head there in terms of, just in terms of getting the most out of your consultant and Evloutio in this case, it's like actually having a client or a client environment, a culture that gets you performing at your best is ultimately going to get them performing at their best, because they're actually going to get your best work and engage with you in a way that's actually going to put your recommendations and your strategies, whatever it might be, into action.
Hadn't quite thought of it that way, but yes, I completely get where you're coming from. I mean, I've been in situations where I've had to make recommendations where I may not have always believed in it, right? Because I was part of organizations that had a particular agenda or some such, right? And it doesn't make you feel good. And I think when you present it, it's evident. At least I'm not the type of person where I can hide my feelings very well. And if I don't believe in something, you can probably tell that's the case.
Oh, wonderful. And I think you've answered the second part of my question, is usually around who would you like to learn from and sit down. But I'm guessing that would be Barack Obama from getting your own performance. So brilliant.
Yeah.
So if people want to find out more, Justin, they want to engage with Evloutio, they want to find out more about what your insights on the Chat GPT and the generative AI space, and you mentioned that online course, where do people go to find out more, and how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so at the moment, I'm about to launch that online course. So it's not available yet, but if you'd like to reach out to me, there's always my website, which is evolutioconsultingco.com. But I'm hugely passionate about both the strategy and AI space, as you would have been able to tell. And I actually write a bi-weekly newsletter called New World Navigator on Substack, where I kind of like pen my thoughts on the latest trends, but also I think significant developments at the interconnection of these two spaces. So, that's one area to find me as well. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the space, I encourage you to join the community and to share your views as well.
Yeah. No, wonderful. I'm a subscriber to that that Substack, and it's one of those areas that it's a really easy way to engage in and really just start to tweak around the edges and see what's there. So if you are thinking maybe this isn't for me, I'm not quite ready to engage, then that's a great way of getting in and dipping your toe and finding out what's there. And then you can go and find out more by contacting Justin and getting in touch. So I definitely recommend people, and I'll put the link in for your Substack there to get people engaged in your newsletter. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think one of the thing is that I'm not a technical person, right? Not a data scientist by background or a software engineer, but I'm really interested in things that potentially have, that have a technical significance, but in a broader strategic sense. So my job in that newsletter is basically to like interpret what may not be decipherable for some people into a language that is jargon free and not technical, right? And accessible for people.
No, it's a great skill to have, and you do it very well, Justin. So I can't wait to keep those newsletters coming. In the meantime, if anybody wants to reach out to Justin, we'll have all of his contact details in the show notes. Just thanks so much for being on the show today, Justin Tan.
Amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me, Paul, and can't wait to be back again at some point.
Yeah, no doubt, and let's look forward to the next collaboration.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.